You have queued up the Roulette Tapes, a program of adventurous music and conversation recorded at the New York City Concert Hall, Roulette. You can hear thousands of concert recordings from Roulette's past and present and find news of upcoming events celebrating innovation and imagination at roulette.org. Aren't you curious?
Welcome to another edition of the Roulette Tapes. I'm Susan James. Today we feature composer and trumpet player Wadada Leo Smith in commentary and clips of his concert performances from the Roulette stage. We will hear his reflections on his masterpiece, 10 Freedom Summers. The studio recording was released as a 4-disc box set in 2012, and in 2024 it was voted Best Album of the 21st Century by Avant Music News. We'll hear passages from the 2013 performances at Roulette. Wadada also reaches back to his memories of vocalist Jeanne Lee, and we'll hear a 1989 performance with her. Let's start off with his duet performance from 2024 with Amina Claudine Myers, titled Central Park's Mosaics. Here's Wadada Leo Smith.
My mother called me Leo, and I thought that was a beautiful name. And then one day I got a little bit excited, and I found the name Wadada from a Bob Marley song. And so I adopted it once I found out that it was Amharic and from Ethiopia. And I would define myself as an organic loner, that I thrive in silence. I love to make music. I love to hear live music. And I love thinking about what I can do with my inspiration. Those are the key moments that I like. I started out at 12 and almost 3 months left before I was 13, playing the trumpet. And I'd never selected the trumpet. My band teacher selected it for me because he had gotten kind of disgusted with my attitude of playing the mellophone because I hated the mellophone. And my good friend Henry played the trumpet. So one day the bandmaster said, "You go to that room, and Henry, you come over here." And that's how I got the trumpet. So I never selected the trumpet. And my first rehearsal with a professional band, I'm still 12 years old. I'm like 3 weeks or so, or 2 weeks from my birthday, my 13th birthday. And I had heard that these people were looking for a trumpet player. So I went to my mother, and no one was in the house but us. And we sat there for a minute, and I said, "Listen, mother dear, when can I date?" She said, "Well, you have to be a teenager." I said, "Okay, 13?" She said, "Yeah, maybe 13. So I took that as a signal that I could go out and audition for this band. And I did. That first audition with a band at 12 still informed me on how I make music today. The most unusual thing about it was that at 13, you don't really know much about music. Not 13, but 12. You don't know much about music. And so when we get there, everybody's set up. Immediately they kick off the band. They don't say anything, you know, like we're gonna play this piece or that piece. They just kicked off the band and started. So I asked a few questions like a kid does at 12. What key you in? Guitar, the bass player, they all said that they were in whatever instrument they played, that's the key they was in. The guitar player said, I'm in guitar key. The bass player said, I'm in bass key. So I figured out immediately that I'm in trumpet key. And I started putting a few sounds here and a few sounds there until I found the moment where there was some kind of resolution. So I discovered that notes have weight and they have power. And within tonality, they have a hierarchy of what's important towards what, either middle to high to low. I learned that at 12. And also, I learned that everybody was able to make whatever they were doing as their own music. So that informs me still today at 83, that whole idea of finding my way, understanding that something has weight and value to it, and learning how to balance it and make it work. The pianist is Amina Claudine Myers. I was introduced to her in the AACM in the 60s, mid to late 60s. We shared that same space for many years, only performing in Muhar Abrams' orchestra as a unit, but never performing together. About 4 or 5 years ago, I made a solo record and I dedicated a piece to her, because I've always liked her sensibility about music. And so when this recording came around, I asked her to participate in it with me, and that was our first time playing. Now this was like, I think 2 or 3 years ago, so we both were in our 80s when this recording is made. And it was a very hard session, because the music was complicated. My music looked very simple on paper, but when you start putting it together, because it doesn't abide by a lot of different rules that are common within music, there's a flow issue. There's an issue of how long is a short note and how long is a long note, because none of those things are really precisely prescribed, although visually, it all works by proportion. Music that's non-metrical, that's not based off of configurations, those are the common properties everybody has learned in university schools and from their teachers. But proportion, nobody's learned that. There's not a single book out there on the market that talks about the proportionality of musical composition or musical works, you say. So that makes it complex, and that makes it more difficult to maneuver the center. But once we got the 3 days of session in, we had a really beautiful concoction of music. And it's called Central Park. I'm a famous Central Park guy. And by that I mean that in my early days when I lived in New York and when I used to come to New York all the time, my favorite night excursion by myself is in a taxi that rides through Central Park at night. Because to me that's the most beautiful part of it, because it's mysterious. You see stuff that's silhouette and kind of in a shadowy motion, that you cannot see during daylight. And you don't know if you're seeing the same street that you were on not so long ago, but you imagine that it might be. So how beautiful mystery is that? It's pretty nice. The first piece in Ten Freedom Summer came from Leroy Jenkins. He and I were pretty close coming up out of the AACM. We worked with Anthony Braxton and Steve McCall together. Leroy, each time he got a new group during the later years, he would ask me for a piece of music to include in his performance. I wrote the Medgar Evers piece for him. That was the first piece in the collection. That was from the beginning to the end of that piece to the end, and that was 37 years that it took to complete Ten Freedom Summer. And Ten Freedom Summer consists of, we use 19 pieces in the recording, but there are approximately 22 or 24 pieces in the whole collection, okay? I wanted to do Ten Freedom Summer in New York City, and I co-produced it with Roulette. And we did all 3 days. Ten Freedom Summer it was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in 2013, during the same time that we played at Roulette. That's Ten Freedom Summer. Now, it is influenced conceptually by August Wilson. August Wilson has 10 plays that cover a century of African American experience in this United States. I've seen 3 of those plays. I own all of them in text. I was the trumpet player that played in the recording that the Yale repertoire did of Mon Rainey's Black Bottom, which was the first one of his plays to become internationally well known. The trumpet player in there was me playing the trumpet line from Fletcher Henderson back then. Okay, so my connection is definitely connected with August Wilson. But what the connection is this: I didn't know how to frame my works, but when I read about his was not a historical narrative, which everybody say that it is. All the critics write that it's historical, but he defined it as a cultural analysis of our experience here. And by him saying that it was a cultural analysis, it made me look at what I was thinking about musically. My musical analysis of this experience in America, starting with Brown versus Board of Education. Starting with the Dred Scott decision, 1857, to Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. Okay, but it has sidelines in it. It has Malcolm X in it by the people of the Shahada. It has 9/11 in it because of the dramatic relationship between America and the world. But those two things are the context of 1857 to 1954, but it jumps past that. 9/11 has affected me in a lot of different ways, and I don't like to talk about it too much because it tears me up. But I wrote that piece about 9/11 because I saw those people coming out of the air from the buildings. And every time I think about it, I'm saying to myself, could I have made that choice? Would I have made that choice? And I see them as most heroic. The idea of making a choice of how you're gonna enter transition, because transition is based off of birth. It's not based off of death, it's based off of birth. And transition is the proper word. Death is a transfiguration word of what that is, but that's not what it is. It is a transition. So making that choice takes courage, but also proper understanding of the meaning of life. You see, their choice shows the meaning of life more profound than anything that we can think of. Jeanne Lee was a great singer and composer, a really sensitive human being. I knew her really well. I always loved performing with her. My first opera, which almost nobody on earth have heard except probably 200 or 300 people 50 years ago, was written with Jeanne Lee as the vocalist in it, because it's a chamber opera for one voice. And she could give context to any group or settings of words. I also made another piece for her called Freedom Song, which was done by the Jazz Composers Orchestra with her as a singer. And I also did a piece for her that's a waltz, but it's based around the title of one of her poems, which may be that performance, I'm not sure. But in there, one of her most striking and most beautiful lines, it's a love, kind of a love gesture that the poetry is about. And she says that how magnificent or wonderful, magnificently, that we share the same space in this universe. Now, who could think of that except somebody that has this kind of a beauty and sensitivity of making art out of her words? So that would be my reflection on that performance, because Jeanne Lee was the big picture for me. And she's my favorite vocalist.
That experience of life beauty of golden shade touching lightly crimson. With grace, my love, of thee. A silent dance in the window. I and I, so and so shines the light. Of eternity in your cosmic form.
Roulette, I remember playing on White Street when Jim was on White Street, where you go upstairs. I played there many times. And when it moved to Brooklyn in this beautiful building, I was really happy to see that, because on the Manhattan side, that was one of the only spaces then at the time that you could go and offer a project and have it done right away. And then the fact that he co-produced the 10 Freedom Summer for 3 days with me there was also just kind of, unexpected. 3 days, that's a lot of time with at least a quintet and 14 other musicians or so. That's pretty cool. The big issue about Roulette is that it provided and it continued to support artists in this area. And that's the most amazing thing about it. Not that I played there, but that it support artists.
Music from Wadada Leo Smith, recorded live at Roulette. The full performances can be heard on our website at roulette.org/archive. The Roulette Tapes is a part of the Roulette Concert Archives, a project made possible in part with support from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Destina Foundation, and the Grammy Museum. David Weinstein is Roulette's Director of Special Projects and Senior Producer of the Roulette Tapes. I'm Susan James. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to the Roulette Tapes, a program of adventurous music and conversation. This series is produced by Roulette Intermedium. You can find thousands of concert recordings from Roulette's archives and news of upcoming events at roulette.org.